The train began to slow. Not the uneasy jerks Mia had felt before, but a deliberate, controlled deceleration. She stared out the window, her heart pounding as the endless darkness gave way to faint pulsing lights in the distance. They weren't stationary. They flickered, moved, danced like fireflies in the void. Something about them felt alive. She clutched the note in her hand. "The voices will guide you." It had been hours, or maybe minutes, since she first heard them. Time had lost all meaning aboard this train, and now it was bringing her somewhere final. The train shuddered to a halt. The lights in the carriage flickered, plunging her into brief darkness before stabilizing. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by her shallow breathing. Then, with a metallic hiss, the doors slid open. Mia didn't move. The platform outside was unlike anything she had seen. It wasn't shrouded in fog or dimly lit like Station Hollow. This place glowed with a soft golden hue, as though the very air was alive. The platform stretched endlessly, and on it stood figures, hundreds, maybe thousands, all facing away from the train. They didn't move, didn't speak. They simply stood, waiting. A shadow moved in the corner of her vision. She turned sharply to see the conductor standing at the far end of the carriage, his uniform pristine, his face unreadable. "It's time," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "Time for what?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "For you to decide," he replied, gesturing toward the open doors. Mia stood, her legs unsteady as she approached the threshold. The figures on the platform remained still, their silence pressing against her like a weight. "Where does this go?" she asked, staring at the conductor. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped aside, revealing a new note pinned to the wall behind him. The handwriting was familiar, the same hurried scrawl as before. "You've arrived. Choose wisely." Mia's pulse quickened. She turned back to the platform, her hands trembling. She wanted to stay on the train, to let it carry her past this strange place. But the note, the voices, they had brought her here for a reason. She stepped onto the platform. The air felt heavy, like stepping into water. The golden glow seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, and the figures, silent, unmoving, felt both close and impossibly far. She took a step forward, then another, until the train was no longer in her peripheral vision. "Mom?" she called out. Her voice echoed unnaturally, stretching into the vastness. The figures didn't react. And then she heard it. "Mia." The voice was her mother's, unmistakable and heartbreakingly clear. "Where are you?" Mia shouted, spinning around. The figures began to move now, slowly turning to face her. Her stomach dropped. They had no faces. The golden glow dimmed as the faceless figures began to advance. Their movements were deliberate, their presence suffocating. Mia backed away, panic rising in her chest. "Mom?" she cried again, desperation in her voice. "Mia," her mother's voice called, louder now. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You must keep going." "Going where?" Mia shouted, tears streaming down her face. The faceless figures were closing in, their hollow forms blocking her view of everything but the faint glow in the distance. Her feet moved before her mind could catch up. She ran. The platform stretched endlessly, the glow growing brighter the faster she moved. The figures melted into the background, their silent pursuit replaced by a low hum that vibrated through her entire body. The light ahead became blinding, consuming everything until she was forced to close her eyes. And then, silence. When Mia opened her eyes, she was back in the train carriage, seated in her original spot. Her suitcase was beside her, untouched. The lights in the carriage were steady, the hum of the train calm and familiar. For a moment she wondered if it had all been a dream. But then she saw it. Another note, sitting on the seat across from hers. She reached for it with trembling hands, unfolding it slowly. This time the words were clear, written in bold, steady letters. "You chose to live." Mia exhaled, a sob escaping her lips as she clutched the note to her chest. The train's hum grew louder, and for the first time she saw the faint lights of a city in the distance. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew one thing for sure. The train had brought her back, and now her journey was just beginning.